The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello and welcome to It's Your Voice, the show that hosts enriching conversations in diversity. My name is Bahia Yaksan. I am a core alignment coach and a diversity educator, which means I train and coach individuals and organizations in rooting out patterns that they want to change, that they recognize are biased or exclusive or unhealthy. And then we spend most of our time focusing on what they want, patterns they want, the habits, the new habits they want, and then we cultivate those neural pathways so that they have new actions based on their values. You can check out my website if you're interested in any kind of course like that. It's whatyouwantcoaching.wordpress.com. Thanks for being here. This is a very unusual, interesting show in a different way. We have a candidate running for the U.S. Congress, Eric Jones, who will be joining me in just a second. Willing to share views and answer as many questions as I can throw out for the first 29, maybe 30 minutes, 20, 25 minutes of the show. And then afterwards, we have an amazing panel of other amazing human beings coming from 3 different generations to have a little dialogue. They'll have a chance to respond to how their takeaway from what Eric shares and also what matters to them, and a dialogue also partly to show what we have in common between the, there are definite real differences impacting people depending on the generation we come from in that construct. But also I always love hearing and finding common ground to just build our collective progress together. Eric Jones, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. And I'm already having fun. We just started.
Great. Well, before I start asking questions, I wanted to just give you a chance to say, what do you want our listeners and viewers to know about you? Like, how do you want to introduce yourself to people could be very near and very far tuning in right now?
I'm an American, just like probably everyone listening, like everyone in this country. And I am deeply, deeply invested in the idea of the American dream. And what I mean by that is a country defined by the most amount of economic opportunity and the most amount of liberty for the most amount of people. And that's how I see America. It's, I was a Medicaid, we were a food assistance family. My father is a disabled veteran, spent all of my childhood addicted to opioids because that's, the outcome of a pretty bad healthcare system where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And despite that, because I had an amazing mother who worked her butt off, and because I had a supportive community, supportive church, and some really fantastic teachers, I was able to be the first one in my family to go to college. I went to Yale University on a full scholarship, and I've now been able to live a life that I never thought. I mean, my wife and I both say that. I mean, we've got 2 young kids. She also didn't come from money, but we both been able to build things. We met each other when we were 22 and then both moved to California. I started a business. She started a business. We've sort of had this California dream that's so incredible. And I know it took both of us a bit of time to get back to public service, which is really important to each of us. And for me, it was really my son being born. He was born quite sick, and that led us to a different journey and led us down a different path than what I expected. And then my daughter being born, and my daughter was born a month before Trump was elected. And wow, did that feel poignant for a whole variety of reasons. So I credit my children credit my partner, wife, Rachel, for getting me here. I credit my kids for setting my head straight in the best possible way. And a lot of what I talk about on a campaign is going to be focused on the core things that affect all of Americans. But I also love that, we were in the green room just before this, and you asked, there was 5 folks, and you asked each person to name, say one thing off the top of their head that one word that was coming to mind about, our upcoming discussion. And I just want to read them. Because the first one, we had affordability, which has been a buzzword, right, that everyone talks about, but also it's more than a buzzword, it's real. And then the other 4 words were unity, hope, authenticity, and outreach.
Yep.
And what I love about these 5 words is that 4 of the 5 are about community and communication and speech and hope. And 1 is about affordability, which, to be clear, is really important, but it's both. And I think every leader in the Democratic Party should be listening, because those 5 words, again, affordability, outreach, authenticity, unity, and hope, I think our party leadership could, if they could just write those 5 words on their foreheads and just look at each other all the time, it would do us a lot of good.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Thank you, panel. I appreciate that you listened and you heard them. And I also really appreciate that you share your values, what matters to you. That's just so important, because then when you say what's on your platform, it doesn't sound like a platitude, because you're saying why these things that you want to address matter.
And to that point, I talk a lot about healthcare because, my father is a disabled veteran, and his disability growing up was the solve for that was more painkillers. And then when I was in my 20s, I saw him actually get real healthcare. And in many ways, I met my father as a 20-year-old. My son, when he was born, needed life-saving surgery from UCSF, and that first hospital bill was $1.6 million. A lot of my work has been in healthcare, and specifically actually with several different presidential administrations, but principally with the Biden administration, on how to bring more care into rural parts of America, and also how to fix Medicare, because I know a lot of seniors know this, but we talk a lot about Medicare for all, but we also don't talk at all about how what Medicare is today is actually pretty insufficient. Doesn't cover vision, doesn't cover dental care, doesn't have to cover hearing care. It doesn't cover the variety of ways one could receive in-home care, everything from a phone call to nursing care. It doesn't cover the vast majority of prescription drugs. And I could keep going, but a lot of my personal work, but also my personal story, influences my views on healthcare. And I'm a big believer in Medicare for all, but I also want people to know that the system we have today, even for those who have Medicare, isn't enough, right? And I talk a lot about healthcare, and I talk a lot about corporate money and special interest money in politics, because as a relatively young person, I'm 35, that narrative has defined my entire political life. What I've seen as an adult, and really since Citizens United, is just more and more corporate money, more special interest money, fewer and fewer politicians who actually represent their constituents or our country, and instead vote not even party lines, but corporate lines or special interest lines. And
Absolutely.
That's this dystopian world that I read about in sci-fi books, but it's a reality that I now see coming, not just today, but it's been this way for a bit, but we're feeling the full force of it in today's America. And I think that's why people are so disaffected with politics, because they know that they're not really being heard. And what we have today isn't really democracy.
Yeah, it has been building over time. And yeah, Citizens United is a cornerstone of it. But it's just, like you said, just really coming to a explosive level with the current administration trying to knock down as many institutions as possible. But I want to get to, there's so many different directions I want to go in. I wanted to just try to stay clear because I'm excited about hearing details. So let's just start with the your vision for universal health care. I think some of what, just to contextualize it a little more, even though maybe everybody already knows it, there's more pressure, I think, on candidates now because we have been lied to and lied to and lied to and lied to, and promises have been broken. You know, I think Henry was the one who asked for authenticity. Felipe's asking for outreach. Like, there's kind of a question of, well, I want to save the why should we believe in you question for the very end of your time, but how do you see universal care expanding? Like, how is that accomplishable? I think we're also getting more intelligent and more aware and more educated. Just tell us a little bit more about the plan to expand use of universal health care and make it better if you get in this position, and how you'll network and just ways that you can help that happen so we can start envisioning and believing that could happen.
Yeah. So when I say I believe in Medicare for all and I believe in universal health care, you can believe me for two reasons. One, because my mom's a nurse and she became a nurse later in life. She got her associate's degree, went to school because she believes that she was put on this planet with her given mission to take care of people. And that is a mission that I also hold and want to serve on her behalf as the one who did everything for us. And second is I'm not going to have any of the corrupting forces that would influence me the other way. I'll highlight, I don't mean to pick on anyone, but we just saw this in our governor's race, right? Becerra was for CalCare, universal coverage for Californians, for about a few weeks under the spotlight until a few of the medical associations got word, gave him a donation and told him, you can't be for CalCare anymore. And now he's not for CalCare. And it's crazy to see that happen so quickly right in front of us. And no one tried to hide it. The medical associations came out and said, oh yeah, we told him that this was not tenable. Like we put him in his place, is what I read. And that is beyond the pale. I mean, that is terrible, right? So that's a statement. Now, how do we get to somewhere like universal coverage? It's a political battle, but we can't just fight simply a political battle, because we also have to fight piece by piece, yard by yard, in terms of improving healthcare every day, because we're going backwards right now. We're all familiar with the Medicaid cuts, right, from Trump.
Yep.
We're now familiar with the ACA cuts, Obamacare cuts, right? But even in 2023, when we had full control, or rather, I would say 21, 22, when we had full control, we were supposed to move towards some version of universal coverage, or at least a public option. And we didn't. And that was with Democrats in power. So we had power. We made a promise. We didn't even really try to fulfill it because it would have gone against corporate interest. So to start, the root of this problem is the insurance money. It's the healthcare money. It's the pharma money. That's a political battle we all got to fight. Now, while we're fighting that, let's also fight for smart things that make people healthier, which enhances coverage, like Medicare for kids. Hard to argue against it. Kids under 18 should have free healthcare. On top of that, I think every adult under 50 should get 2 free checkups a year. You can do it with a clinical pharmacist at your local pharmacy, 2 checkups, 2 blood draws. That would cost the system about $250 per person to give a lot of people access to care, because half of folks under 50 in America don't even see a PCP. Free prescription generic drugs. Everyone in America, free prescription drugs. That costs about 15 to 20 days of war in Iran, to give you a relative sense of the cost of things, right? Yeah. And I talked about Medicare expansion, vision, dental, hearing aids, right? And then also graduated in-home care, because right now the only places that Medicare pays for hospitalized for care, ongoing care, is in a hospital environment at $5,000 to $10,000 a night, or in a skilled nursing facility at a very similar cost. If you just want to have a nurse come to your home once a week to check on you, Medicare won't help with that. So all those things are kind of working around the edges, but they're big edges. We also need to expand the Medicaid income line continuously and lower the Medicare age, which you hear talked about a lot, right? But it's everything at once. It's more checkups, more PCPs, right? More people getting primary care. It's lowering the Medicare age. It's enhancing the Medicaid line. It's giving kids free childcare and making Medicare better. And while we do all that, the political battle, is getting all the special interest money in healthcare out, so that when we have full control this time, as Democrats, we'll actually do the right thing. And by the way, maybe even the Republicans will work with us on this, because believe it or not, these things pull really well with Republicans too, because Americans all want healthcare.
That really helps to hear your framework and some specifics, and that they're like mentioning the several layer, like your awareness of what needs to happen is very helpful. I'm just struggling with, like, where do I go next? I know people want to know about affordability, which is housing. I also want to talk about, I'll just list the Strait of Hormuz, like farmers, fertilization being blocked, like fertilizer being blocked, like, and then also something that really matters to you and me that I know I heard you say at a town hall, just to let you know what you need to save time for is how can we communicate, and how can you help communicate the need to, like, I know you talk about not taking money from PACs, so we'll save that for later. So let me let do the affordability stuff too first.
And then I think you also, just going from your notes, you had a few quick like campaign related things that we can knock out too. Yeah. I think there have been some questions on there. So let me talk about Hormuz and note that I don't have a solution here, but it's helpful to folks to be educated. Another reason to not like this war is if it wasn't unpopular enough. I think by this point, people know where I stand on this. You know, I'm a no more war, no more aid guy of any type. So we have this issue, right, where nitrogen coming out of, which is a key fertilizer ingredient coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, I think it's about a third of the global market, if I'm correct. But nitrogen prices have gone up by 50%. There's an alternative called urea, but it's the same underlying kind of chemical base. So farmers are struggling, and particularly in the new parts of the district, rice farmers, generally speaking, they fertilize late. They fertilize like March, April. They probably didn't pre-buy a bunch of their fertilizer. So it's going to depend in different parts of the district. We've got obviously grape growing in the south. We've got the nuts, walnuts, pistachio, almonds up north. We've got rice and cattle in the middle. But the point is, because of the blockade and the war in Iran, farmers are going to see dramatically increased cost of fertilization and getting their crops, ready for next year. So what can we do? The answer is not much. We can't do much in terms of creating more market access. Now, there is enough in the market. It's just farmers can't afford it. So what they do is they cut back, and maybe you're basically sacrificing next year's yields, which for farmers who are already on the ropes, particularly family farms who only average about 120 acres of farmable land in our district, they're small farms. Like that could be a death. That could be like a killing blow for their business and really their family livelihood for the entire family. And so what can we do? We need to subsidize. This is an area where you kind of can't subsidize enough. Like we talk a lot about housing subsidies. We talk a lot about educational subsidies, 100%. But food subsidies at the very bottom of the production pyramid, where we're reinforcing sustainable and regenerative processes to allow farmers to be better, to actually create healthier food and sell their food more cheaply because they're not, frankly, just fighting to survive. This is a great opportunity for California with our $350 billion budget to step in and say, hey, we're going to help our farmers. Politically, that's been a scary statement historically because the environmentalists and the farming community have somehow been at odds. So saying we're going to help farmers was almost an anti-environmentalist stance. But we have to create a distinction here. Mega farms and private equity owned farms are not small family farms. And there's a big difference in terms of water usage, in terms of environmental practice, in terms of, frankly, employability. Like these small family farms, they make communities, they make our farmers markets. They are the type of food that we want to eat. And yet we often get caught in this battle up here between big corporate interest and the environmentalists. But the environmentalists, we should be on the side of the small family farm and figuring out ways to drive our policies to get them more subsidy to be more environmentally sustainable, because it's not economic upfront for them to make that decision, but they can get there. So now is a great opportunity to turn something bad, which is it's going to be a tough market for a lot of these folks and really hard to even fully fertilize their crops, and actually create something good out of it and say, hey, here's a subsidy, here's a way for you to be actually environmentally friendly, and we're going to step in and help at the state level. So that was a bunch of stuff. But
no, that's helpful. Also,
help farms.
Yeah, and to making a distinction between small local farms and corporations is like huge, key. And I know District 4 is wide. I don't know if I mentioned that you're running for District 4. It's a lot of counties.
9.
With a lot of different needs. Well, while we're talking about corporate, it just makes me think back to your promising you're not taking money from PACs. And I think of one of the strongest PACs, which has divided the Democratic Party nationally the most recent few years, is AIPAC, which, and there's so many different Jewish organizations and groups. There was an amazing, wonderful peace summit. I've gotten to see clips of organized by 80 different peace organizations in Israel, who do not want the United States to unconditionally keep funding weapons to destroy Palestinians. We know, like, when we're really like paying attention to our hearts and our souls and our highest intelligence, we know the destruction of one people is the destruction of other. We know there's no peace for anyone unless there's peace for everyone. We know this, but the United States has been caught in this grip. And then it was for a long time called anti-Semitic to say, can we stop funding money from our taxpayer dollars to destroy this Palestine, which has been sort of eaten away at over years. But how are you going to deal with pressure? It's such a strong group. How do you feel about AIPAC? And I know we need a lot. There's a lot of tension.
Yeah.
I really want to help educate.
To go back to our great panelists, unity, hope, authenticity, and outreach.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take those 4 words and apply them. Well, actually, funny, affordability also applies, and affordability. We're going to take those 5 words and apply them to this question, right? Because a lot of folks in America are struggling, and to be constantly sending weapons aid abroad at a moment in time when Americans can't feed themselves or can't afford their life-saving meds, frankly, at minimum, it comes across as insensitive. And what it really shows is the corruption in the system, because that's not a priority. So let's start there, put aside any of just the conflict itself, and just come to, should we be giving free bombs to foreign nations when people in this country can't afford food? Doesn't matter what country you are.
Right. It could be any country that's
right. That
decimated.
Start there, like free bombs. So now let's move on to the harder question, which is what's going on, right? Because you're right. We've conflated AIPAC with anti-Semitism, with Jewishness, with American Jewishness, with Israel, with statehood, and all these different ideas. And it's all of it, right? Like anti-Semitism in the US is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's increasing. I would argue that both sides, all the sides are making it worse. Netanyahu's definitely making it worse.
Definitely making it worse.
Without a doubt, right? The right's making it worse, as it's been, and the left's making it worse, right? And we can acknowledge that, but we should first acknowledge from an order of operations perspective, like kind of what's been going on. And the reality is Americans are fed up. And no ally deserves a free pass. No one deserves unconditional aid. Mm-hmm. Like we can go we don't have to go too far back in history to whether it was Sharon or Omer. Like these were much different administrations. Mm-hmm. I believe under Ariel Sharon that settlements actually decreased in the West Bank. Mm-hmm. Right? That's moving towards a viable 2-state solution. That's moving towards peace. What we have now is not.
It's extreme.
Reform. So why would we not, as the greatest country on earth, strongest military, use our might and our political will and our courage to move us towards peace? We're doing the opposite. And so that's like big picture. Now, the problem right now is I think it's hard if you're someone who lives in the US with Jewish values. Look, my wife's Jewish. We chose to raise our kids Jewish. She's not religious, but the value set felt right to us. I'm confirmed Catholic. I'm a Christian. But I say all that because she feels like her values have been taken away by what's going on. So I just want to continue to reinforce that this regime in this version of Israel does not necessarily represent all American Jews.
Definitely does not represent so many American Jews.
Right. And
even Israeli Jews.
And even Israeli Jews. But the fact that we can't also admit reality in our party, the party leadership can't talk about apartheid, can't talk, like they won't even use. So that almost feels like, are we being lied to again? So again, both these things are true at once, right? The fact that our party really seems to be fighting against the objective reality that everyone sees. And there seems to be a conflation where people like my wife maybe aren't getting an ability to even voice their own opinion, which would agree with, I imagine, with you and I, right? At least I know she agrees with me. So long story short to say, it's a big issue on both sides, and we need honest messengers. When you take a bunch of money from AIPAC, it's hard to be an honest messenger. Like, it just is.
You're not.
Right? So that's the problem with all this political influence is we don't know what truth is anymore. We don't know who you're serving, even if you do have the right intentions. Maybe you do. I have no way of knowing that because all I see is the dollars and the voting patterns, which align very much with the dollars. And that's the issue. Like, and I think that highlighting all this moves us towards peace.
And do you think, I'm sort of interrupting you because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
It seems to me you're a good communicator. Like if you are elected and you're in position and you go to DC, can you see yourself being a strong communicator there, even though people are going, oh, here's another new one. Do you see yourself being able to speak truth to power? I know that's like cliche, but do you see yourself being able to stay solidly in your convictions and help reflect what's really going on?
This is an issue where, let me say this, it destroys me how much suffering there is on this issue, and people continue to suffer. Basically, we can't admit truth, right?
Yeah.
So, exactly. but it's strange to me because I have the privilege of not being one of the suffering. Like I see it through my wife, I see it through my children, but it's not me, right? And look, I studied Middle Eastern studies in college. I spent 1.5 years in the Middle East and North Africa. I mentioned our choice around our family. I'm not taking money from anybody from either side. So I say all that because I am in a position where I think I can be honest to both sides, or at least there's no strings. And I'm also only 35. So my view of kind of where sentiment is I think a little more tracked with the actual sentiment of Americans, not just our political leaders. Mm-hmm. So I say all that because I hope to be an honest voice. I don't want to weaponize this issue on either side. I think politicians on both sides weaponize it. When they want to get some votes or they want to rile folks up, they use it, even if they're being truthful. And I'll never do that. I want to be truthful and bring down the average tenor of conversations that people can feel compassion and love again, because right now you can't feel that through the anger. And the anger is justified, but we got to get through that to have any sort of healing. And we're not there yet.
People are terrified and shut down because there's not enough safety.
And our own presidential administration doesn't help on this front.
Yeah, apparently have zero empathy, zero. It appears to be an oligarchy. So Well, it's 5:29. Can you stay? Do we keep you, or do you have to go?
I have a conversation with one of our local unions, so I'm going to pop off, which I apologize for. Also, to everyone on the call who's listening or who will listen, brevity is not a strength of mine, but I will be, from an outreach perspective, my email is eric@ericjones.us. I respond to every email. If I don't respond within a week, it's because I missed it, not because I don't want to respond. So I want to make sure that though I do have to jump, everyone should feel open to reaching out. I'll answer any question. I'll talk to anybody. That's the outreach part of our party that we've sort of lost, that we can definitely do.
We'll help you stay accountable. How about
Thank
that?
You. Thank you, because everyone knows that. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Eric Jones.
Awesome. Thank you.
Tour. Yeah, really appreciate you. We'll see you around. Wow, please come back on. Sarah, Kathy, Peggy, Henry, Felipe, our wonderful panel. Thank you all so much again for waiting. I'm just going to say names so we know who's expected to speak. And I'm just, by the order I see in my screen, can we start with Sarah? Do you want to start with your response to what Eric said and just what's on your heart and mind right now, given the climate we're talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Bahia, for inviting me, and thank you, panel, for being here. So much of what Eric said resonated a great deal about his background, how our beliefs and values are formed with what we observe growing up. And I loved how I think as a cross-cultural counselor, family therapist, it really resonated as he spoke to values that he observed growing up with a mom who was a nurse and a dad who is a disabled veteran. I think this is important to put in context what shapes our values, what we observe, and what is it that gives us purpose to want to do more in relation to those things that we recognize that are important in the human experience. Absolutely.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing a bit about yourself. I'm sorry I didn't. Peggy, I is a retired attorney, an active member of Indivisible. Peggy, what's on your mind after hearing Eric talk? And
I had the privilege of meeting with him early in the campaign in a very small group, and I had the same impression as I did then. Is his values are really great. Peace, for one, and for another thing, make sure everybody's taken care of as part of the community. And then the other thing that really struck me a lot was whatever he talks about, he doesn't have just platitudes or quick fixes, right? He always demonstrates a very thorough understanding of it. So when he's talking about the Strait of Hormuz, he's talking about fertilizers, and that leads to farms, and that leads to how do you manage a farm when you don't have enough fertilizer or the price has gone up so high that you're actually going to be bankrupt. Just really, that's what I like about him a lot, is I feel very great confidence that there are going to be really good solutions that he will bring to the table and really contribute a lot to what needs to be done and thought about when we're solving problems like that. That's just one example.
Thanks, Peggy. Let me turn to you, Felipe. How did you feel about the outreach comments he made, and also any other response you have on your heart right now?
I do think that he could do more on the outreach part. I really only heard about him through mail, but most of my generation isn't using that. Sure, he has an email that he answers, but I mean, how can anybody know that it's really him? He seems genuine. He does. I don't have much to go off of, to be honest. Okay. I just don't know him that well. He's talking about his past, right? But if he does win, I just want to see him uphold what he said he would, not trade stocks in Congress, not take APAC money, but I want to hear him also denounce these things. If he were in the Congress chamber, I want to hear him denounce the others that are trading stocks in Congress. I want to hear him tell them. I think that would reach a lot of my generation. Telling it to their face, what you're doing is horrible, and you're a horrible person for ignoring the needs of the American public and for voting in a way that continues the suffering that this country is causing overseas. So I think that would reach me and a lot of others like me.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Your skepticism, doubt, worry is completely understandable. And I'm sure
my generation loves doing that, right? Being skeptical.
well, you're using your voice to ask for more, to focus on what you really want to see.
These people need to be confronted, and if he's gonna do that, I would like that. I would like that very much.
I love that. We'll make sure he hears this. I'm sure he will.
Busy
listen.
guy.
He's got a solid team. I got to meet 2 or 3 of them. Thank you, Felipe. Let me go to Kathy Shrestha, who I will share. We met in the Peace Corps as young Peace Corps volunteers a few decades ago. She also is a great supporter of this podcast. So Kathy, what's resonating? Did it help at all with the affordability word you had in mind?
Yes, Eric talked a lot about healthcare, which was very interesting to me because I know personally people who have been affected by the loss of the subsidies of the health marketplace. People's healthcare has skyrocketed, the premiums, and people have had to actually cancel their health insurance because of that. So I was interested in hearing Eric's views on what specific things can be done to expand healthcare. So I felt that was very interesting, and it does have a lot to do with affordability.
That's true. Thank you. Any other thoughts before we go to Henry?
No more thoughts.
Okay. We didn't get to housing. That was on the list, but I knew the list was longer than we would get to. So Henry, how about the authenticity note? Your response in any way you'd like to share right now?
I didn't like his response to your last question. The way I interpreted your last question was, can you be an honest communicator? Can you uphold your convictions? I feel like the response he gave was long-winded and avoided answering directly. And I didn't like that. I'm also curious how he manages to avoid exactly how he has made his money. I know that he said he started a business and worked with numerous administrations, but I feel like, in my humble opinion, that he leaves out crucial details of how he's been able to make enough money to where he can pledge to donate his entire salary. I don't feel there's enough transparency on that part. Another issue that I feel like I'm having is it's one thing to try to convince us voters to vote for him, and he may have a lot of nice solutions. I did appreciate some of the things he did say on like what he wants to do in terms of healthcare, but I do question his ability to actually convince the other Congress people to actually adopt his views. Like, can he convince other congressmen and congresswomen and senators? Does he carry enough clout and power in those 2 chambers? Like, I don't know if he can actually go and do what he says he wants to do, although what he wants to do seems promising. And so I feel that while he does make a lot of promises and has a lot of good ideas, I hear no credibility and see no credibility as to how he's actually going to go about convincing 535 people to actually agree with him. And I want to hear more of that, but I just didn't. So that was a little disappointing.
Okay. Thanks. I'm actually taking notes because I want to email him with these comments if y'all don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you wouldn't. You're expressing them because you want to hear some more answers.
Yeah.
And then they appreciate it. And I think, yeah, it's so, yes. Thank you so much for everybody's insight. So I guess back to you, Sarah.
Of course, of course.
You
Well,
got,
it's interesting hearing everyone's thoughts and reflection. I so appreciate the authenticity. Henry, you really hold true to the concept you shared earlier, and that you're living that by example. Because we do have to share our authentic truth and really feel, what we're uncomfortable with and what's not settling with us and why. And that's oftentimes something so often similar to other people and what other people are feeling. They just don't have the platform to voice it, right? So we, in some ways, we have to give voice to our authentic truth in an effort to represent all others as well who are thinking the same. But I love the power of dialogue. That's why I appreciate so much these podcasts. As you know, I've come to your podcast many times because I think if we lose the platform of communicating and having a dialogue, we're really going to be in trouble. Yeah. So I'm grateful to be in this moment, having a dialogue with you about thoughts and feelings. I really enjoyed the podcast, last podcast that you had with Henry and Felipe. I really was proud to hear them talk and communicate so openly from the heart. I hope that more young people in their generation do the same and reflect and communicate and share their thoughts. Their voice matters.
absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. So back to you, Peggy. We were able to have a conversation the other day, talking about, and anyone in the next round, I'm so curious about, like, we share different kind of periods of political, I was going to say incidents, events that were crushing, like completely crushing before all of this one's at a new level. But I believe your word was unity, and I wondered if you could just sort of speak to what you've seen that your generation can shed light on to, again, I think, because I felt very hopeful after talking to you about, whether it was, I don't want to keep talking. I just want to hand the mic to you.
My word was hope, actually, not unity, but I like unity too. Well, my story kind of goes back to 1980 when Reagan was first elected, and now we see a lot more of the significance of that. At the time, I was having graduated with a bachelor's degree in history and only being able to find a job as a secretary. So I did that. That was fine, but that was humiliating. Not part of my expectations, but that is a very common thing, as I've learned, is new graduates, you don't get a job in your real career if you've gotten a regular bachelor's degree and not a technical degree that goes specifically to one type of thing. But at any rate, that's a side point. It was 5 o'clock. I was driving home from work and the news came on that Ronald Reagan had won, and they went through the entire ballot, and I realized not one thing that I voted for prevailed. And it was very, very demoralizing. It was, I grew up as 11 years old in the 60s when everybody else got to go out and protest and everything and do real things. And we're always feeling like all that just sort of went to the wayside and it was really boring. And there it was, 1980, and I didn't know where to turn or what to do. It happened again in 2000 when the Supreme Court gave the presidency to Bush illegally, in my opinion. It was the middle of the night with CNN on, and I was just like, whatever, watching what's going on. And they announced it, and I just jumped up like, wait, we should all be out on the streets. How come there's not some kind of huge protest going on? We need to get out there. And I realized I had no idea of where to go or what you do when we have a coup in our country, And so The third incident, sort of along those lines, would be November of 2016, when Trump was announced as the winner. It's 4 a.m. in the morning. And again, it was just so terrible. It was just unbelievable. And then in January, I started doing all kinds of weird things immediately, as best I could, to do whatever. And then in January, I found out about Indivisible. And then for the first time, I wasn't alone. And since then, I haven't been alone. That's my story. And so it's a story of hope, because it's so much better to do this together than alone.
So the organizing and coordination and getting messages out. Thank you for sharing that.
We go in regularly to talk to Mike Thompson about what we want him to do. So we, that's like our core business. We do a lot of other stuff too, but that's
great. Felipe?
To follow on that topic, or
I guess what's in your heart, and I so appreciate how you share what's happening from your generational perspective. So you can add to that, or you can say what's on your heart. We have only 5 minutes left, but so whatever you want to, what's most important for you to express right now, or say what you want, what matters to you now.
people like Reagan and Trump, these politicians that get into power and just lie and don't follow through on their promises, they're only a symptom, really. I mean, there's always going to be another Trump, or at least at this rate there will be, unless we put a stop to well, I don't think there's an easier way to say it besides using the buzzword, the over-financialization of America.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is so detached from their work, from their lives. Nobody can really pursue the things that they want to, their passions. And the lack of hope that we're seeing in our generation, we just don't believe that things are going to get better at this rate. I mean, looking at the climate crisis, looking at... Yes, Henry. Henry would like to add.
Yes,
He
Henry.
probably will say I'm being too pessimistic, but I'm just pointing
Not
out
even-
the material realities that we're facing, that our
Not
generation
even
is facing.
pessimistic, but I'm saying, like, when was the last time I noticed, like, all of us here, I think, are left leaning, or at least left of the political spectrum. But I'm wondering, when was the last time we've ever spoken to anyone on the right, or we've even had any hope that maybe someone on the right would engage in conversation with us, or we could actually talk honestly and see each other eye to eye, or person to person, or friend as friend. Like, we ourselves don't actually go about, like, talking to people who have different voices than us, different opinions, different ideas, and, like, we talk about symptoms, we talk about all these issues. I'm wondering, like, why don't we actually, like, ourselves as people see these other people as just people? Because I'm pretty sure they would say the exact same things about us and could characterize the world in a very similar dark light. We don't give them a chance. I know, like, even myself, like, I notice myself, like, automatically prejudicing or stigmatizing or opposing just based off of belief and ideology. And I'm like, that is just not ideal. And I wouldn't want to advocate that anyone else do that. And, like, to actually think and give the other person a genuine chance, I feel like it's just something we don't have. I think that's the problem.
Let's create it. Honestly, let's do this together. I'd be happy to do this. I thank you. I'm sorry. We have 2 minutes, and I see. I want to make sure Kathy gets her last word in. I know Felipe wasn't finished. Sarah, do you want to just do quick? Let Felipe finish, then Sarah, then Kathy wrap us up.
Really quick. Sorry, was I supposed to go first or Kathy?
You.
Okay. The cultural influence that the right has is largely a product of money in politics, and the outreach that they're able to achieve is because of the dark money that is being used to push these people and these voices up. It's not really a right versus left thing, letting the right talk, the left talk. That's not what I think it is, in my opinion. We all want the same thing. We just need to get this money out of politics, out of the media that is being streamed to us. Information is reality, and right now everyone's reality is in shambles. That is all.
Great. Thank you so much. Sarah and then Kathy.
Yes, I just resonated with so much that was shared regarding the importance of communication with the other side, and how the whole reason we're polarized is because oftentimes we surround ourselves with the people who agree with us, and we're not creating dialogue to build bridges of understanding. And that is a problem in our world. And I did use the word unity, and I like what Heidi said at the end. We are stronger together. Nothing is going to be as great doing it alone. It's the togetherness that when we rise together and communicate together and realize how much more commonalities we actually share, we can finally get rid of these divides. And passing it on to Kathy.
Last word, Kathy.
Am I next? Okay. I'm just hoping that as many people as possible will vote, because even though it may be seen as something that doesn't matter, I think it does matter. And I think if we vote, that's the most powerful thing we can do.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. I want to follow up with the email. I really appreciate each one of you and your time. And I want to also thank the listeners, the viewers, our engineer Rebel, our producer Dean, and tune in next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll see you on Talk4 TV or W4CY.com. And may we all continue to have these conversations in diversity. Keep talking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.